Well, good morning. Good morning. Thank you. Thank you. Yep. Everybody else, good morning. Thank you. Hey, 3 weeks from today, classes end. For how many of you is that an exciting thought? For how many of you is that a terrifying thought? Not that they're ending, it's the journey to the end, right, is what is a little bit frightening. You know, when we look at the end of the year, it's like all. Have you ever had the dream where you're sound asleep, and all of a sudden you think about a class? You already know where I'm going, right? You think about a class. It's finals week. And you realize, shoot, I never went. If you've ever had that dream, I just want to plant that in your head. Because that's one of the most dreams of college graduates, is this sense, and it's usually in high school, and it's usually one of those things where it's like, what am I going to do? I've never gone to class. It's finals week. What's that going to be like? You know, I always thought that was a dream until a student came in once to my office to register for fall classes. So you come in like in April, like right around now, right? And you're sitting down and you're talking about classes. And I asked, so how'd that third quad class go? And she looked at me, tears welled up, and she's like, I totally forgot that I had signed up for a class. So the class went past and she had never done it. So there were several petitions and she graduated successfully, right? But, you know, there are lots of journeys. For a lot of you are going to start figuring out here before too long, hey, after finals, when do I leave? When do we leave and how do I get home? When you travel on the roads, we're going to do a little poll here, right? There's no marketing. This is just for our entertainment. When you're driving, how many of you are sincere, like, Google Maps user? You are all Google all the time. All right, how many of you are Apple Maps users? All right, Apple thanks you. How many of you are Waze people? The people who like to know where the police are, right? They're all signing up for Waze. You know, I had to go down to New York City last week to do a funeral. My mom's youngest sister died. One of my aunts died, and I had the privilege of doing her funeral. And this dilemma happened. I'm driving through Connecticut, and you're welcome. And all of a sudden, Apple Maps and Google Maps start to argue with which way I should go. Right? So I went to Waze. Waze is like, right? And so when you drive, what's your ultimate goal? When they're arguing, which one do you choose? The fastest one. I love when it pops up. You're on like an 8-hour journey, and it pops up and says, we found a route that will save you 3 minutes. Would you like to change? Right? How many of you automatically change to save the 3? How many of you just persevere on? Right? Journeys. There's all kinds of journeys. Hey, you know what? This Friday in chapel, you're going to get to hear about some journeys that some of your peers took. We're going to hear from the short-term missions teams from spring break. So you're going to hear some of your friends up here sharing, you know, about their journeys, right? Where they went. We had groups go to Wales. We had groups go to Iceland. We had groups go to West Virginia. We had a group go to Ecuador. All right, those are Jesse's people over there, the West Virginia folks, right? But right, they traveled all over. And one of the privileges I've had in my life is to do quite a bit of traveling. I did missions. I oversaw missions in my church for many years. And one of the countries I've been to more than any other, in fact, the country I've been to more than any other, is the South American country of Bolivia. I've been to Bolivia about 32 times over the years, and I've had lots of amazing experiences. I met a young lady there when she was in middle school. and she ended up coming to Gordon College and is a graduate of Gordon. But Bolivia, being a developing country, has some pretty interesting infrastructure. And over the years, I took several groups down into the jungles of Bolivia. Bolivia has some of the highest altitudes and yet has Amazon jungles. So we would fly into La Paz. The airport in La Paz is 14,000 feet up. That's where the airport is. So it's not like the plane lands, it just sort of pulls in. I mean, you're just driving along, it's like, oh, whoop, airport. And you land. But we went from there by bus up and over the Andes and then down into the jungle. And for many years, excuse me, the only way to get there was on one road. That road went on to become famous when the BBC made a documentary about it, calling it the world's most dangerous road. So that's when it's in the lowlands. The road goes up over the mountains and it winds around. There are no guardrails. The edges are thousands of feet deep. The road is not paved. The road is dirt and gravel. The road is very narrow. There are times where the road is not appreciably wider than this middle aisle. No guardrails, and for many, many years, it was the only way to get down into the youngest, the Amazon, there. And so I rode on this road many times, like in a bus, and you're in Bolivia, you're riding on an old bus that has like no rubber on the tires. Your birthday balloons have as much rubber as the tires on these buses, right? And that's sort of what it's like. That cross is there because if you go to the edge and you look down, there'll be like 3 other buses down there. Every corner, you stop and look off the edge, and you see people who did not successfully navigate the trip. Gives you a little better view. This is more what it's like. Straight down. We're not talking rolling down, we're talking flying off. And so you have to constantly, when you get on the bus, how many of you are not going on this road? Well, I took one group on it, and we're going along, and one of my adult leaders is in the back, and she has had it. And so I'm sitting in the bus making sure the driver is like, got his game face on up there. I don't want my driver yawning when we're on this road, right? And so we're driving along, and I look in the back, and one of my adult leaders has taken the pillowcase off of her pillow and has it over her head, right? This is the only mission trip that looks like we brought a hostage with us in the back of the bus. So that's what it's like. And then once in a while, it really stinks when you run into somebody else, because you got to figure it out, right? Thankfully, the Bolivian government finally got to the point where they said, we're going to make it one-way traffic between 8 and noon, and then we'll close that, let the traffic get off, and then from noon or 1 till 6, it'll go the other way to stop this from happening. So I was there several times. Now, if you look at that green truck, you see that little washout there? There's not a whole lot there. Not a whole lot there. The truck is past a spot that's sort of washed out, but they carve areas, make carve-outs into the mountain so that somebody has to back up and tuck themselves in. Then both vehicles have to fold in their side view mirrors and get it'd be like, I really need my bus to be skinny, so let me really mentally figure out how to make this a skinny bus. And you would go by, and sometimes the mirrors would bump, and you didn't care if the mirrors bumped if you were on the vehicle that was inside the mountain. But if you were the one that was tantalizingly close to the edge, you don't want anything to bump anything, right? So they would sort that out. That's sort of what it's like in most places, right? And the guy in the truck's got big issues. He's got big issues. Pretty soon that truck will be one that when you drive by, you just take a glance down and see what's left. And hopefully the driver's out. Right? So this was, and still is, considered the most dangerous road in the world. Bolivia finally built a bypass. A nice road that will get you where you need to go. It'll get you there pretty quickly and effectively. And so this is what it's used for today. Mountain biking. People go to the top and mountain bike down to see how fast they can descend a mountain that has no guardrails and gravel surface. So now, I haven't been on that for probably 12 years, but if you went there today, my guess is when you got to some of the turns, you could look down there and go, oh, it's a trek. Like, oh, what brand bike was that? Down there, right? So it's fascinating, and if you ever want to see more, just look up online, World's Most Dangerous Road. I think it was the BBC that made this, and it was a wild ride. You know, that road still goes where it needs to, right? I mean, you could still technically take it, although now they just don't allow vehicles on there. They just tell you, take the bypass. Take the bypass. So now there's a new way to get where you want to go, and but the old way is still there. You know, which road you take, right? We talked about Apple Maps, Google Maps, Waze. In Bolivia, that road or the bypass. Bypass looks sort of like a relative of 128. It's like a highway, right? And it's opened up a new part of the country. But this morning, you know, we've been working our way through the book of James, and we've got it mapped out in the chapel staff that we'll finish it here in the next few weeks. And when it comes to the choices that you make, one of the things I really like about James is just exactly what our theme is, faith that works. Faith that works. It's faith that works. It does not say faith that's convenient. It does not say it's convenient, but it says it works. Right? And so where's the intersection between that convenience? Because the reality is, most of us in our culture, we want a faith that's convenient. One that allows us to live our lives. Sort of, it forms some guardrails. You know, if we start to wander, we bump off the guardrail, we sort of get back in the middle, right? And we sort of like a non-intrusive faith because it's easier. But how do you know which is which? How do you know which decision to make? How do you know which road to take? Because the reality is, in our lives, there are roads before us every single day. All day long. If I decide this is where it will go. If I decide this is where it will go. Right? Some of you are trying to figure out the road to commencement, seniors. Or some of you are thinking, I got to get the road to finishing the semester. I got this class, the road's pretty good. I got a B+ average in there. I don't have much time. I got a C- over here. So what am I going to do? Which road? Am I going to choose the B+ and see if I can bump that to an A? Or am I willing to let the B+ melt a bit into a B-, hoping that the C- and the B- might meet, and I'd be good right there, right? I mean, we make decisions all the time, and all those decisions require that we have some wisdom. So this morning, I want us to talk a bit about wisdom. What is wisdom? Some dictionary definitions. Wisdom is the soundness of an action or decision with regard to the application of experience, knowledge, and good judgment. Life has taught me this, and if my experience says this is good. I mean, when I ask you, which navigation map do you use? Which app? Your experience, right? If one constantly makes you late and lost, you can keep trying it, hoping that it will get better, or you'll, after a while, say, you know what? I'll be back when you fix that. But I'm going to come over here, right? Wisdom, we learn from our experience. It's also the ability to discern or judge what is right, true, and lasting. Scripture implores us to be people of wisdom, people who are wise. Now, in a college setting, we want you to be wise. We want you to be able to think. We want you to be able to take what you learn and apply it in your lives, right? So there's wisdom there. We want you to obtain wisdom. And part of the wisdom is how do you use your knowledge, right? You are here accumulating knowledge. You're taking core courses that maybe you go, I don't know why I'm in there. But you know what? I always say the core courses, you know what they do? They prepare you for conversations with everybody. They prepare you for conversations with people who have interests different than you. But you're attaining knowledge, and yet God says, as you attain that knowledge, use that knowledge to, more importantly, filter it through wisdom. Filter it through wisdom. We read in James 1, verse 5, we looked at this earlier in the semester. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives it generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. There is all different types of wisdom. Excuse me. Sorry, CTS. I was trying to not deafen the person back there with the headphones on. There are all types of wisdom, right? We look for wisdom. We want to be wise. We want to be wise, but it has to do with where you're shopping for your wisdom, right? Where's your source? Where's your source? And the reality truly is there is some great wisdom out there. There's some great biblical wisdom out there, and yet our society also promotes something as wisdom that is far closer to sewage than it is wisdom. Far closer. Right? If I got two fountains going over here, one is hooked up next to a toxic waste dump, well water, and I got one over here that's a mountain stream, odds are the line's going to be really short near the toxic waste dump and much longer over here with the pure water. But if you look at our culture, where is our culture lined up? Morally. A lot more people lining up at the moral dump than having the wisdom to line up where the water is pure and right and just. Right? Godly wisdom. Godly wisdom. So when it comes to us making our choices, what does it mean to be wise? J.I. Packer is a great Christian writer, and he said this: for us to be truly wise in the Bible sense, our intelligence and cleverness must be harnessed to a right end. Wisdom is the power to see and the inclination to choose the best and the highest goal, together with the surest means of attaining it. Wisdom is, in fact, the practical side of moral goodness. Packer has written some great books. Sometime during the summer when you don't have anything you have to read, it would be time well spent. right? He's talking about what does it mean for us to be wise, and that is part of us making decisions as to where it is that we're pursuing that, right? So let's look at our passage for today quickly, which is James 3:13 through 18. Right, let's read this together. Right? Who is wise? Let me fill in what this together thing means. All right, we're all going to do this. All right, ready? Here we go. Who is wise and understanding among you? Let them show it by their good life, by deeds done in the humility that comes from wisdom. But if you harbor bitter envy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast about it or deny the truth. Such wisdom does not come down from heaven, but is earthly, unspiritual, demonic. For there you envy and selfish ambition. There you find disorder and every evil practice. But the wisdom that comes from heaven is first of all pure, then peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere, peacemakers who sow in peace reap a harvest of righteousness. Right? When we look at this, James is basically laying out, these are the attributes. You got two choices on wisdom. You got two choices. These are the attributes. Where are you living? Right? So if we just look at this list, godly wisdom is what? A good life and good deeds done in humility, where you do things that sometimes need to be done, but you're not looking for this. Right? On campus, there's a small group of people that do, it's just called Barnabas. What Barnabas does is they show up in faculty and staff offices, usually in the middle of the night with the cooperation of the Gordon Police Department, and they blast your office filled with notes of appreciation. You never know when they're coming. It's sort of a secret society. In fact, it is. And they like it like that. But you know what? They do great work, and there are so many times you come in, a faculty or staff member has had a tough week. Barnabas did not know that, and you come in your office, and you are loved upon. And nobody there is looking for this. Right? A good life and good deeds done in humility. It's heavenly, heaven-minded. It's pure, peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy. People, our culture needs mercy. Our campus needs mercy. Right? There are two things you can do. When somebody is wounded, you can cast them aside or you can pick them up. The parable of the Good Samaritan is not there by accident. And Jesus knew when he was describing the people walking past, he was describing most of us, because we're walking by, people are hurting, and we might walk by, and most of us are walking by with the best of intentions to go make a difference down the road. But once in a while, on the road that we choose, we need to look around and see who's there and pick people up and move them along with us. Full of mercy. Good fruit. Good fruit. Right? Good fruit. My neighbor has apple trees. He's had apple trees for the 36 years we've lived in our house. It had apples every year. They've had them forever. You never would eat the apples. You know what he started doing about 4 years ago? Taking care of the trees. He now is retired and he's meticulous. He's out there, he is trimming and he is spraying. And it makes great apples. They produce great apples. They look like a lost cause for decades. And now there are great apples there because he tends to the garden. He tends to the garden. Produce good fruit. Tend to your garden. Tend to your own personal life. Be impartial. Be sincere. Be sincere. Insincerity stinks. And we all know when somebody is gaslighting us by being unsincere. Right? I mean, sincerity and care for one another, that's what James is imploring us. Be sincere, be godly, be pure. That is wisdom. That's the pursuit of God's wisdom. God, what would you have me do right now? What would you have me be today? Where would you have me be? Who do I need to keep an eye out for? God, make me be passionate enough and compassionate enough to look away from my phone when I walk down the sidewalk to maybe make eye contact with somebody and say hello. Be compassionate. Be sincere. You see, the earth is also serving up wisdom. Our culture will serve up what it's selling as wisdom. And what does this say? It's really envious. It's selfish ambition. I am one, I am two, I am three, and I am the most important thing in the room right now. I mean, that's what our culture is. It's telling you, self-promote. Self-promote. What's everybody want to be? Everybody wants to be an influencer. Right? Everybody wants their TikTok to be an influencer, going to make some bucks on the side. Make some bucks, that's going to be your career. They did a survey, 29% of your demographic, their career goal is to be an influencer online. There'll be nobody left to be influenced. Where's the audience? If everybody's selling, nobody's buying. We're earthly. Earthly wisdom is unspiritual. James even goes as far as to use the word demonic. Demonic, that'll light your lamp. In terms of getting your attention. Right? I mean, it does not lead to a good place. It does not lead to good things. It leads to disorder and every evil practice. See, once you crack the door, it gets easier and easier. Right? There's a reason that following Jesus requires a path, that it requires decisions. Now, we screw it up, sure. Right? And God is gracious. God also doesn't want to be played. Scripture also says God will not be mocked. God will not be mocked. And so, there are two types of wisdom out there, and there are two roads. And we have to decide each day which road we're on. Right, just looking one more time at this. Who is wise and understanding among you? Let them show it by their good life, by deeds done in humility that come from wisdom. But if you harbor bitter envy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast about it or deny the truth. In other words, you're not fooling anybody. Don't deny the truth. Such quote-unquote wisdom does not come down from heaven, but is earthly, unspiritual, demonic. For where you have envy and self-ambition, there you will find disorder in every evil practice. But the wisdom that comes from heaven is first of all pure, then peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere. Peacemakers who sow in peace reap a harvest of righteousness. See, there are ramifications for the decisions that we make. Sometimes the ramifications are in our lives. Sometimes the ramifications are also in the lives of those that we love. Right? Deciding to follow God's wisdom means just being refocused each day. You're going to screw up, yes. Refocus. 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 And I believe what Scripture is promising is that if we pursue God, if we're sincere in pursuing His wisdom, He will meet us in that pursuit. He will not disappoint us in that pursuit. You see, the pursuit of the others, right? When we make the decisions that I'm going to set aside what I know is wise for me to do what's convenient, right? If you're a liar, which is the hardest lie? First one. Listen, how many of you ever get caught lying to your parents and your parents smoked you out? How many of you that did not go well? Right? Yeah. The first one's the easiest. You know what's the best part about telling the truth? Being a person who just lives a truthful life is there's only one story you have to remember. When you live a dishonest life, you got to constantly be thinking about, okay, what did I tell? I mean, it becomes a stack of cards that eventually falls. James implores us to walk with God, to pursue heavenly wisdom, pursue things that are pure, be peace-loving, be considerate, be submissive, be full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere. You know, maybe one of the best ways to sort of take this out of the theoretical is just to look at that list and think, where will I start today? Who do I encounter during the course of the day with whom I may be more sincere? Who do I encounter in the course of the day with whom I might be more considerate? Who in the course of the day might, consider it. There's low-hanging fruit everywhere. You know what's a considerate action? When you're walking along, there's a piece of trash laying there, pick it up. You know, if you leave it there, you know what that means? It's saying, like, hey, physical plant, come here. It's right here. Please pick that up for me. Right? And consider it, pick it up. I actually did that walking in my car. I picked it up. Somebody from physical plant came like 100 yards over and saw me do it and said, hey, thank you so much for doing that. Like, consider it's not hard. And I think it will transform this place. So may we focus our walk on Him, and may we treasure our time together here, right, for the rest of the semester. It's going to roll right over, right? And next year will be a new crowd. You know what happens in 4 years? In 4 years, everything is new, because everybody is new. Everybody is new. So let's focus on godly wisdom, and you have a good day. You are dismissed.